This episode of Cape Ann Today is brought to you by the Building Center, setting the standard for quality and service since 1903.
I am speaking today with Greg Verga, Mayor of Gloucester. Mayor, thanks for taking this time.
Happy to be here.
Let's just start right. How has your immersion into the city's executive branch gone? Did you have goals for this time, and have you achieved them?
Yeah, we have and had a lot of goals. The funny thing is we've been here about 6 weeks, and I think at least 4 of the weeks we had major snow events to deal with.
Yeah.
So you come in every morning with your plan of, I want to, work on ABC today, but then all of a sudden XYZ get thrown at you. So the secret is to get back to ABC as you can throughout the day and throughout the week. But one of the main goals we had was assembling the team. I was fortunate that this administration inherited a really sound financial picture, and we inherited a really great team of managers and rank and file employees across the board. So we've been working on filling in the gaps. Like for instance, Jill, my CAO, has moved over from community development, so that's an opening that they were doing some interviews for, I believe, tomorrow or the next day. But our team in-house here in the mayor's office, we've been building. It's basically been myself, Jill, and Danny Jorgensen, who was a part-timer under the previous mayor, has sort of been she's retired, so she has limited hours she can work. So she's sort of been filling in as our executive assistant while we search for somebody. The first couple of times we posted, we didn't have much luck. Like most employers, we're having that problem. But we have some really good candidates now. We hope to have the position filled, within the next week or so. We also went out for the previous administration had a position of an assistant CAO, which we opted against, filling. Instead, we're going with the position that the previous administration had a few years ago, which is a constituent service / communications director.
Mm.
And we had 2 really good candidates in for second interviews a few days ago. We have selected one. I've selected one, and as long as the negotiations and the reference calls go okay, we hope to have that position filled in the next 2 weeks. So we're filling out.
Will that be a hotline, the constituent services?
It will be the main. We have a mayor at gloucester-ma.gov, which currently goes to me and the others in here. It'll also be added to that person, and their job will be to sort of triage the messages that come in, because we get lots of messages from, my street didn't get plowed, to, more abstract or more detailed concerns about goings on through the city council. So it'd be that person's job just to sort of say, Mayor, this one you should address directly. This one is just, we can reply with the answer. Yes, the answer to your question is, A, B, C, D, and that's the end of it. So we've been doing a pretty good job, basically the 2.5 of us trying to field all the calls and all the emails, but having somebody who that's their primary focus is going to be key. So nothing's slipping through the cracks.
Right. Any surprises in these 62 days?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Maybe the other up to 90, there might still be surprises. So
yeah. It's so I'm sure there'll be more surprises. There's no handbook for being mayor. There's no matter what job you've had before. But once you're thrust into the position, you really have to learn. It's on the job training. But I'm able to reach out to previous mayors, reach out to our state rep, our state senator, and others for their advice. And then Jill's been a huge asset. Having as most people know, I was on the school committee, city council, but I've been out of city government for 6 years, and so Jill has been in the city government for the last 4.5 years. So it helps fill that void from the time I left to the time I returned. But so the surprises are just the flow of day to day and how it works, and just trying to, adjust myself to that flow, or adjust the flow to the way I think it would be more successful, more efficient for us to actually run things.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds as if you've gotten to know Mike Hale pretty well in the DPW regarding all the snowstorms.
Oh, we've become very close over these last few snowstorms. Fortunately, I was, again, with the school committee for 8 years, the council for 6 years, and Mike was, he was here the whole time, not as director originally, but so I've known him for quite a while, and, it's helpful when you can pick up the phone and, Mike, and he can call me Greg, and that has been a good relationship to sort of reestablish, and an important one, because DPW is probably, without doubt, has the biggest function in the city. I'm not trying to belittle other departments, but by far, as in terms of volume, size, and what they have to cover, literally the square miles of the city, it is the key job right now.
Right. Well, let's move on a little bit. You will soon be required to submit your first city budget to the city council for approval. How are you getting on top of the needs of the budget needs of the city right now? How are you learning about that, and how's it going?
Right. Well, I'll say two words. John Dunn. John Dunn is our chief financial officer, and I will be certainly leaning on him, because I just got sort of a tip from somebody that new mayor, people will try to try new things with the new mayor in terms of
That's really
budget
funny.
requests.
Yeah.
So I'm new, John's not.
Yeah.
So
Don't try any sneaky stuff.
Yeah. Right. But we again, I said we inherited a really great financial picture, but this is no time to start spending foolishly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've been involved in the budget process as a city councilor and as a school committee member. This is my first time, obviously, on the other side as the mayor.
Mm-hmm.
But, the department has been given guidance of what we'll be looking for from them. Same thing on the school department last night, the school committee meeting. We discussed that the budget is going to be, the budget meetings have already started with the school department meeting with their departments. So it's a huge budget, $130 odd million. But I think we're ready to tackle it and try to be as fair as we can. And as I've said all along, my goal is to do the most good for the most people. So for each of these dollars, whatever can do the most good for the most people is where I'm going to put my emphasis on.
Mm. And forgive me if I don't remember, has the city hired someone to manage the ARPA money and sort of consult on that? How's that going?
No, it's funny you say. I was on a meeting just yesterday with, there were 4 new mayors, and it was like a round table, and one of the questions came up about ARPA, and I said, unfortunately for Gloucester, the previous administration didn't lay out the steps for ARPA, but fortunately for Gloucester, they didn't lay out the steps for ARPA. Meaning, I'm not like, I don't have my hands tied, because they had already said this is what we're going to do. So it was. I appreciate that they sort of left it for me to take care of. So now, at this point, it's too late, from what I'm hearing, to go and hire someone, which was my original goal, to oversee the ARPA. But there is an opportunity that maybe we could have. We're looking for a grants administrator that could be part of their task for the first several months, of the first year, because what we want to do is start having some listening posts. And part of building the team was to reestablish, going back to your first question, to rebuild, reconstitute a lot of the boards and commissions that had a lot of vacancies. There were a lot of people who were up for reappointment. Some chose not to be reappointed. Mm-hmm. I reappointed many people, didn't reappoint some people. But one of the key boards is the Capital Improvements Advisory Board, which is a 7-member board. There were only 4 members. So I came in here knowing I had to fill 3 seats. 2 of the original 4 have since decided to resign. So now I'm looking to fill, I have filled 4 of the 7 seats, got 2 incumbents. So I still have 1 more opening. But their function is actually spelled out in the charter. They're supposed to advise on capital improvements, something like a new school, a new boat for the harbor master, a new fire truck for the fire station. So that's part of what I've been doing, is trying to get them up to speed, because that's what we need them in place for that. And ARPA is going to be a key component of their function, which it now obviously never has been, because it's never been ARPA. But I want to set up some listening posts throughout the city, the different wards, and have the ward councils involved, and have representatives from the CIAB involved on the ground floor as we have these discussions. Because in the end, we have to decide, what's, again, most bang for the buck, most good for the most people. We do have big issues we have to deal with. One of the questions you'd probably talk about is wastewater.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, hopefully every single dime of this relief money from ARPA and the infrastructure money, and if Build Back Better ever happens, I'd hate to have every single penny of it go to those big projects. We're
Right.
do small, good things with small amounts throughout the city. But until we get out and hear what the people really are interested in and really passionate about spending that money on, we're not going to know. But the idea now that the mask mandate's lifted and starting people indoors, we can have some of these meetings hybrid, in person, say at the Lanesville Community Center, Magnolia Library, et cetera, throughout town, and have live people, have it on the Zoom, and make sure everybody has a chance to have their say.
So I have read a couple of numbers tossed around regarding ARPA. Can you, as mayor, give us one number that says the amount that the city receives from the federal government?
$23 million. There are two categories because the feds distributed this to the states, because we don't have a Massachusetts county government anymore because it was abolished 20 years ago. There's a piece of ARPA funding that was to the city, and another piece to the city that would have been our share of the county budget, but the total was 23.
And you talked about being on the school committee. So let's just go a little bit deeper there. What's that feel like to be back on the school committee?
Yeah, well, it's funny because we met last night, and I had a question for the superintendent, and my brain just froze, and I almost called him Christopher. Christopher Farmer was the superintendent when I was on the school committee last time, and I had to apologize. I almost called him Christopher. So it is surreal. One of the most surreal things about it is serving on the committee with Samantha Verga Watson, because I served with her mother 20 years ago when I originally got on the school committee. So
that's really sweet. That's really sweet. Yeah.
But it's good. It's kind of it's seamless might not be the word, but I'm sort of getting back into the groove.
Yeah.
It's been since 2010 that I was on the school committee. So yeah, I'm getting back into the groove, and it's a good group of school committee members. They're all hard workers, and his team are really hard workers and trying to do the best.
Yeah. Well, can you give us any sort of foreshadowing about what they're looking for in their budget? What are the big concerns?
Oh, the big concern. Well, they've gotten a lot of federal relief money as well, over the last few years. So they're looking at we are looking at what's going to drop off, and what are we going to be able to start funding ourselves? What do we need to continue? What do we want to continue? So that's one of the focuses. We're lucky that some of it I think drops off next year and some the following year. But the big thing is just trying to maintain what they have. I mean, over the years, I was on the committee during some lean times, and we used to have we have a level funded budget. So let's just say your budget's $40 million, and it's like you got $40 million last year, you're going to get $40 million this year. Okay, well then you got to add in all the increase in salaries, all the increases in insurance, and the other fixed costs. So a level funded budget is basically a cut.
Right.
And
Exactly.
then you have your level service budget, which I think is what they've been working on for the past several years, which is, we'll give you what it takes, with the increase it takes to keep you back where you were. So we're sort of hovering around there. The previous administration had given guidance to them, and we're sticking to that. Looks like obviously the state has had some really good revenues. They've done some increases in Chapter 70 funding, so there's some opportunity there. But I'm on the school committee, but I'm also the mayor, so
Right.
I have to keep my cards close to my chest here. Because I served on the school committee with two mayors, and I did notice that the former mayor did it too while I wasn't on the board, which is they always voted present when the school budget was approved, because you can't. If you come out and say I vote yes, then sort of if you need to make tweaks later, it's like, wait, you already approved. So,
Right.
But I'm supported by my grandson will enter kindergarten in the fall, so it's the school's future is it's very close to home to me.
Yeah.
But we have a big city we have to look at. The rest of the pie. But again, we are in pretty good financial shape, but we also always have to be wary of the next big event or the big downturn.
Right. Well, to that point, we'll get to that. But I need to ask, where will your grandson start elementary school?
West Parish.
Okay.
Yeah, so they live. My daughter and my son-in-law, and my grandkids live just around the corner from me and I live just around the corner from West Parish.
Nice,
So,
nice.
yeah, so it'd be pretty fun to him go to the school his mother went to.
Oh, yeah, that's lovely.
Well, technically not the school she went to, but the
Oh,
location she went to.
Yeah, right, right. Well, we are going to return to a theme you mentioned earlier, that wastewater treatment plant, which was a major theme in the election debates. So we've been reading about it in the Gloucester Times. Can you tell us basically what the status is of this project?
Well, the project is really nowhere. I mean, the writing on the wall, the tea leaves, whatever metaphor you want to use, all have one, the magic 8 ball. They all have one answer, which is we have to do something.
Mhm.
You go back to the late 70s. Jack Clark wrote a letter to the editor today, which really sort of spelled out the history.
That's what it wasn't an article, it was Jack Clark's letter.
Yes.
He did a good job.
Yes, exactly. So the city had some issues in the past, I think, in terms of where they cited the plant, and we've been in a state of mulliganism for the last few decades. That okay, primary treatment, okay, fine. Here's a waiver. You're all right for now, and then every mayor, and I said this before, I'm not blaming Sabathia or anybody all the way back to Leo Alpa, because I might be doing the same thing if we still had the chance for the waiver. They were able to get that waiver in hand. And now, musical chairs, the music stopped and I don't have a chair. So we have to address it. It's not sexy. It's not like we're building some amusement park we can have a big ribbon cut in for and everybody's going to be excited to go in and get on the rides. This is, but it's just as critical. Well, I don't think an amusement park is critical. It is a critical component of any community, is to have a functioning wastewater system. So one of the things we're trying to do is the number that's been kicked around, well, back when I was at the council, the number kicked around was like $80 million. Over the years, it's sort of crept up to $100 million.
Mm-hmm.
With the costs and the supply chain, who knows what it's actually going to be. So we're in a fortunate once in a lifetime situation now with this federal relief money. So what can we get from our allocation of ARPA? What can we spend from our allocation of ARPA? What can we spend from our allocation of infrastructure money? Fingers crossed, Build Back Better yield some more money for us. How much of that can we put towards the sewer plant? How much of the state's portion of those 3 pools of money can we grab to put towards the sewer plant? I've had I had a conversation with Congressman Moulton several weeks ago. And, the question I always ask when you're talking to people upstream is, what can I do to help? And I said, well, sewer plant. And so as we were chatting, he mentioned that he had a conversation with town administrator in Manchester, and they too have issues with their sewer plant. And further, the congressman pointed out that his conversations with the governor were, the governor would like to look for regional approaches of how he distributes the ARPA funds. So we recently had a Zoom meeting with Congressman Moulton and some people from his team, the town administrators from Rockport, Manchester, and Essex, to talk about totally possible, we're at ground level here, regional approaches, because Essex, rises and falls with us because we are their sole sewer provider. They don't have their own plant. Rockport is tied into our plant through some houses over near Long Beach. Manchester has some issues with their plant. They need to decide how they're going to move forward. So again, early stages of the conversation, but we're trying to see what works for us. Does a regional approach? Does a Cape Ann sewer district, is that a better choice than 4 communities going out? Well, 3, because Essex is stuck with us. 3 communities going off on their own solutions. I know Rockport has capacity issues. We don't have capacity issues, but we do have flow issues, what we're allowed to put out there. So again, just stay tuned for that. I hope something works out, and I hope that as a region, we are able to tap into some more of that money that we might not be able to do as individual communities.
Right. So, and the premise is that you can pool your ARPA funds, or some.
Well, I don't know how much ARPA funds they have left, and they didn't get anywhere near what we did. I mean, Essex only got a few $100,000, which is gone. But maybe, as I say, as a regional approach,
the governor would smile on that. Yeah,
presumably, fingers crossed.
Right.
And hopefully, if this is you know how government works and these things work. If it's after the next governor is sworn in, hopefully there'll be a similar, you know, that the mechanisms put in place that'll the regional bonus will be still in place. So we're working as fast as we can, but as deliberatively and carefully as we can.
Mm-hmm. Mm. And is there any sort of deadline? Like, I mean, there must be a deadline. There's been a deadline for 20 years, I think. So, but do you feel as if you know, by a certain date, you guys really need to have some decisions made?
I haven't heard of any certain date, but I have heard some feedback through some of our department heads that they heard feedback through EPA and other environmental agencies that after I announced my desire, that it's like, you know, they were like, good, that's really good to hear.
Oh,
so we might have been able to buy some goodwill and possibly some time, but we're not talking another 30 years of time.
Right, right. Well, another issue that I can't say you inherited from the last administration, but it did come from the past year is COVID. And, you know, you were still managing it a bit when you took office. It's just a little tiny bit in our rearview mirror. How is the city thinking about COVID and preparing for perhaps more?
Well, one of the ways we're preparing, we continue with vaccine clinics and we continue with testing. The schools are doing pool testing and at-home testing. And people who aren't aware should, I forget the website, but if they Google it, they'll find the government is providing free at-home test kits to basically every American. So we're continuing those efforts to monitor, to make sure we're safe. I personally am encouraging people get the vaccine. It works. You know, is it 100%? No, but the overwhelming scientific evidence is if you're exposed, you're better off with the vaccine than without. So that's one way we a continued effort to address COVID. During the pandemic, you know, we did, it was big news. We lost our public health nurse. We lost our public health director. We recently, a month or so ago, Max Schenk, who was the assistant director, was working as interim director. He was named the director. They are getting close to selecting an assistant director. I believe an offer has been made to a public health nurse. I'm not sure if the acceptance has happened, but we're looking to reconstitute a full team back at the health department. So ever vigilant, but having the people in place is going to be key. The conference I had with the mayor, as I mentioned yesterday, I used the term that COVID is not gone, it's just in remission. And we need to be ready because there could be another spike, you know, another variant. And I think it's going to be a long time before this is gone. I think COVID is not going to go the way of smallpox anytime soon, you know, so we have to be ready to deal with it. You know, maybe hopefully it'll be just like the flu over the next few years and eventually fade out. But we can't let our guard down just yet. You know, I personally am happy we dropped the mask mandate in the public buildings, publicly owned buildings. We dropped the mask mandate in the, you know, publicly accessible buildings, you know, restaurants and retail stores, and the schools have dropped the mandate. As you know, we voted after the governor said the 28th is the last day. It's up to the schools if you want to do it. And we got some good feedback. Unlike in the news recently, a governor of a certain southern state was speaking at a high school, and he started telling the kids to take their masks off. We've had no instances of bullying or anything because some kids are choosing to still wear masks in our school system. So the first full week, question was asked at the school committee last night, and it's gone pretty well this first week without masks. So again, to answer your COVID question, yes, I inherited that. It wasn't. It's not like there was not a creation of the previous administration,
right?
And they did the best they could. Again, back to there's no handbook. There was no handbook for COVID, so it was like building that 747 at 30,000 feet. But luckily, all the steps are in place, so we kind of know what to expect. Again, keeping the vaccine clinics going, keeping the testing going, keeping our staff fully up to date, fully established is going to help. Also, we did recently. Fred Cowan resigned from the Board of Health. You know, he's going to focus on his position at the Council on Aging. I did just make an appointment to replace him, which was coincidentally Kelly Hyland, our former public health nurse.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so she was approved at the O&A committee. The council will take it up Tuesday. And she's already a temporary appointment, so she should be participating in their meeting, which I believe is tonight. So, and I was committed to putting a nurse on there. I mean, not just because my wife's a nurse and my daughter's a nurse, but, having someone hands-on. And the bonus was Kelly being available and willing, who's not only a nurse, but public health nurse, and was right in the thick of it as far as this whole.
Oh, yeah. We interviewed her a couple of times during COVID. Right. Yeah. Oh, well, that's great to hear. Do you get any guidelines from the state regarding just looking to the future about COVID? Are you getting any sort of messaging about what communities should be thinking?
I haven't heard anything specific. I mean, the CDC, as you know, has been a lot more cautious than we were at the state and local level. And I think I actually just went to the Coast Guard station today, and we brought masks because we were told they were required. But when we got to the door, they says, no, as of Monday, they're not required on military facilities. So, even though the policies are being relaxed, I think there's still that sense of it's not over yet. So be vigilant. So I haven't heard of any other guidelines or directives from, higher up.
Well, so it's not a sign of bad luck that my little black cat is in my window trying to come in. So it might be time to ask you if you're excited about listening to live music again. And hopefully, and my cat really needs to come in now.
Really wants to.
Right. That cat was actually, I got her when we did a Cape Ann Today show at Cape Ann Animal Aid. And I came home with this little black cat who's adorable. So anyway, are you looking forward to live music? And maybe will you play a few chords the next time we talk?
Sure. I mean, I can strum some bass lines if you want.
Sure.
I'm looking forward to it. Absolutely. Tonight, for the first time in a long time, I'm getting together with a couple of friends to play at my studio in my house. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I won't ask you to take the guitar down this time, but next time you need to have it ready. Okay.
So I could play something.
Sure.
Okay. A tune, I'll give you a preview of a song that we've got coming out soon by band Paul's on Fire.
Yeah.
So, and it's just the bass line, though. It's not as exciting.
Nice, Mayor.
There you go.
All right, let's go out with that, okay?
Yes.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. And thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Interested in a sponsorship? Email sponsor@1623studios.org to learn more.